At one of the recently held international conferences that gathered representatives of about 20 countries, our film crew asked the participants one and the same question. What are the most attractive tourist resources of Kazakhstan? Many of them replied, Astana city, the mountains, the beautiful landscapes and wild animals. Many tourists are willing to come to Central Asia to see rare or endemic species of wild animals. Many of them dream of taking pictures of snow leopard, saiga and ibex. Tourists often ask the organizers for guarantees, although in this type of business it's hard to give an absolute assurance. Wild animals are free-ranging, lead a secret and often crepuscular way of life. It's not easy approaching them to take a good photo. Yet there are specialists in Kazakhstan who are ready to undertake this task with a high probability of success. Today we will see how zoologists Orken Shaymukhanbetov of Kazakh Tourism National Company and Aybat Muzbay of the Karaganda Eco Museum will try to show wild animals to their friends. Biologists from the Wild Sheep Foundation.
Wild Sheep Foundation is a conservation organization first and foremost. Although we're made up primarily of hunters, our focus is on the conservation of wild sheep and goats around the world.
Undoubtedly, any journey across Kazakhstan should begin with getting acquainted with its capital. In the course of the past 2 decades, a small provincial city in the midst of the Great Steppe has evolved into a major Central Asian tourist brand. After sightseeing, Ray Thornton and Brad Jefferson hold a number of business meetings.
We have a membership that's global, but primarily in North America, so Canada, US, and Mexico.
Frankly, mainly our people travel abroad for the vacation, for something else. Turkey, Egypt, Thailand, Europe maybe. And now our main idea to redevelop mostly internal tourism.
Kazakhstan and American specialists want to learn as much as possible about the similarities and differences in their national nature tourism frameworks.
US Park Service, it belongs to Ministry of Agriculture or it's separate?
Park Service is under the Department of the Interior. So, but has ties to agriculture as well.
Not directly under this ministry.
No, it's under the Secretary of the Interior. So he has the Park Service, and then interesting enough, the Forest Service. So our forests, and then the Bureau of Land Management is under agriculture. So the Interior has Park Service, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and then monuments.
The working meetings are over, and now comes the most interesting part of the journey. Zoologist Orken and Aybat are inviting their friends to the Buyratau National Park. It takes 4 hours by car to get from Astana to the Buyratau National Park, located on the territory of 2 regions, 28,000 hectares in Osakarovka district of Karaganda region and 60,000 hectares in Yeremintau district of Akmola region. Near Yeremintau district center, we need to take the turn to the Molodezhny settlement hosting the National Parks office.
Наши американские друзья, они тоже биологи, они специалисты по охране природы.
Our American friends are also biologists. They are conservationists. They told us a lot about the US national parks, and now they want to see our national parks and our wild animals in the natural environment. Unfortunately, we haven't managed to show them yet. We have already been here and there, but they say that it's much easier to do it in the Buyratau National Park.
В нашем национальном природном парке на территории обитает очень много различных видов животных.
Many different animal species live on the territory of our park, including some listed in the National Red Book and these which can be encountered on a daily basis. Speaking of mammals, first of all, it's mountain sheep or ragali. You can see them 100% almost everywhere within the limits of the park. Competent management of the animal and plant worlds cannot be ensured without corresponding scientific research. Thus, each national park has its own science department.
В отделе науки работает 5 сотрудников.
Our science unit has 5 employees: senior researcher, research assistant, junior researcher, lab assistant and department head. The main objectives of our science department are to preserve and restore flora and fauna. The park's office has a small nature museum where you can get the first impression of the park's landscapes and fauna.
Конечно же, целью создания национального парка является не только научная деятельность, охрана.
Undoubtedly, our national park was established not only for doing science, ensuring protection and reproduction, but also for promoting environmental education and tourism. Currently, we focus on ecotourism. Since in our park the recreational pressure is limited, we are not able to receive as many visitors compared to other parks. For example, Borovoya or Bayanaul. We have many virgin zones inhabited by redbook species.
Для того, чтобы увидеть нашу территорию, я вам сегодня...
In order for our guests to see our premises, I will give you 2 biologists, game managers. Our park has 2 branches, so each of them will represent one of the branches. We'll accompany you and show you what we have. It's better to see once than hear 100 times, right? The actual park's territory starts about 70 kilometers away from its office. The road turns into the steppe. After a while, we start seeing forest outliers in the middle of the vast plain, and low mountains appear on the horizon. It means we're approaching Buyratau. Translated from Kazakh, the park's name means curly mountains. Flat tops covered with birch trees and relic black alder groves do seem curly from afar.
In our
park, we have a number of cloven-footed species like argali, red deer, elk and roe deer. Before the establishment of the park, there were about 50 argali here. Based on the recent surveys, their current number has reached 500 animals. Black alder massives stretch in wide strips along the slopes and come up to 1,000 meters above sea level. Alder grows well on humid soils, along streams, springs and in places with a high groundwater level. Black alder is included in the Red Book of Kazakhstan and thus cutting it is subject to a large fine. Sometimes birch, black alder and pine form mixed groves. We see some movement between the 2 forest strips. We need to install our field scopes and have a good look around. It's argali, 62 animals in one herd. It's a very good indicator. The argali smelled us from the distance of 1 kilometer. Mountain sheep have dozens of times more chemoreceptors than humans. Perfect smell not only helps them escape from enemies, but also plays a significant role in their social behavior. Each argali can identify the members of its specific herd from others by smell. Argali are social animals. In the summer they live in small groups and in the fall they start forming large herds. Each herd member must confirm its social status every day. Whereas now the males are demonstrating their strength in the course of peaceful games, soon when the mating season comes, they will fight for real.
Сейчас слово «баран» приобрело некий негативный оттенок смысла.
Now the word sheep has acquired a negative connotation. I totally disagree with it. Remember the horned helmet of Alexander the Macedonian from the Gentleman of Fortune movie? Why the conqueror of the half of the world wore argali horns on his helmet? The Egyptian god of the sun, Amun-Ra, was also depicted with mountain sheep horns. By the way, this is exactly the reason why the Latin classification of mountain sheep is called Ovis Ammon. In ancient time, the mountain ram symbolized power and force. The domesticated descendants of mountain rams slightly devalued their title associated with gods, because for millennia the shepherds selected the most easily managed sheep. It happens to all domesticated animals. Have you ever seen a wild boar? Tricky, powerful and aggressive. Yet after living in a piggery for several generations with no need to fight for life and food, the descendants of the ferocious wild boar turn into fat, lazy and weak pigs as we know them.
Ближайшие потомки дикого кабана превращаются в круглую свинку на тонких ножках.
As a result of lengthy artificial selection, the sheep have not only changed externally, but also lost a significant part of the cognitive abilities inherent in their wild ancestors. The classic of cognitive ethology, Professor Harry Jerrison from New York, in his work Paleontology and the Evolution of Brain Activity, has traced the link between brain volume and the ability of elementary rational activity in different species of wild and domestic animals. Unnecessary for the survival of a species, organs, instinct and psychological reactions disappear quite quickly, but can come back under certain conditions. Let's recall the history of Mustangs in Kazakhstan. During collectivization, some of the livestock owners drove their horses into the Sari-Yasik or Trout Desert, hoping to find them when everything comes down. The population of wild Mustangs that emerged as a result had lived there until the early 20th century. Here are some of the handsome Argali bred in the mountains of Tian Shan. These merino sheep appeared by crossing domestic sheep with wild Argali. The once lost features of distant ancestors allow this breed to survive in harsh highland conditions.
Порода создавался в 50-м году, через 20 лет.
The breed was created in the 1950s, and after 20 years it was tested in Kazakhstan under the name of the Kazakh Argali Merino sheep, famous for its fine merino wool. After that, they started replicating animals. During the testing period, there were 1,600 heads. And then in two high mountainous regions, Narinkol and Kegen, the livestock population reached 947,000. Then in the course of privatization, it somehow decreased and currently amounts to 570,000. We don't know when and why genes of this or that given species can become useful, yet we know for sure that preserving the plant and animal biodiversity is our duty to our descendants. Vertical and horizontal migrations of mountain sheep testify to their high spatial intelligence, allowing them to find the necessary locations without any mistakes tens or even hundreds of kilometers away. They also respond surprisingly quickly to the changing environment. For example, if there is a lot of snow during winter, the Argali migrate to places with thin snow cover. They know exactly where to migrate during cold and hot periods, where to hide during the period of high activity of blood-sucking insects, and where to go during vegetation period to get the most nutritious grass. The Argali also possess great communication skills, allowing them to migrate in large groups. The Argali don't wander like domestic sheep with no specific direction, but migrate in an organized way to a specific location. The Argali quickly mastered the seasonal nature of our agricultural cycles. They know when shepherds bring their herds to Jailau pastures and leave them 2 weeks before their arrival. In the fall, they return about 2 weeks after the departure of domestic sheep. The Argali inhabit the territory of 10 countries. They live in northern Afghanistan, China, Mongolia, Tibet, northern Nepal, northern Pakistan, eastern Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan and Russia. Altogether, there are 15 registered subspecies. But according to the 2008 classification, the IUCN Red Book lists 9 following species. Ovis amon amon, Altai Argali. Ovis amoncolium, Central Kazakhstani Argali. Ovis amon Davini, Gobi Agali. Ovis amon Hodgsoni, Tibetan Agali. Ovis amon Jubata, North Chinese Agali or Shanxi Agali. Ovis amon Karelini, Tenshan Agali. Ovis amon Nigrimantana, Karatau Agali. Ovis amon Poli, Pamir sheep or Pamir Agali. Ovis amon Sevetsovi, Sevetsov Agali. Agali is a migratory species. They don't follow national borders, which means that to preserve the population of these rare animals across their whole habitat, all countries where Agali live need to take joint target efforts. In 1979, the Convention on the Conservation of Migratory Species of Wild Animals, also known as the Bonn Convention, was signed in Bonn. I am Christiana Redger, and I work in the Secretariat of the Bonn Convention on the Conservation of Migratory Species of Wild Animals. I coordinate CMS initiatives in Central Asia aimed at preserving mammals. In 2005, the Republic of Kazakhstan adopted the law on accession of the Republic of Kazakhstan to the Convention on the Conservation of Migratory Species of Wild Animals.
Конвенция по сохранению мигрирующих видов диких животных. В рамках этой конвенции
The Convention on the Conservation of Migratory Species includes different tools. And one of these tools is the International Single Species Action Plan for the Conservation of Agali ovis amon. It was designed jointly with various organizations from concerned countries, Kazakhstan and 10 more countries where Agali live. We had multiple meetings in Germany and in Bishkek to allow local experts and subject matter specialists to make their proposals regarding the sustainable management and use of Agali in Central Asia. Within the framework of the Bonn Convention, as well as under the corresponding action plan, legal and sustainable use can play an important role for preserving the Agali population. Because it creates incentives for local residents to preserve this and other rare species. The Agali-specific action plan focuses on sustainable use. Such measures can help us to preserve the species. Not all countries where mountain sheep live have suitable conditions for preserving these animals. In some places, the defenders of the nature are forced to work in difficult political and economic conditions. Yet conservation efforts are ongoing even in military conflict zones.
Initially, when we started to have our protected areas, we just made our own assessment of the ecological important areas, and then identified that area and completed our studies. And after that, some of the areas has been declared as national park and protected areas and wildlife reserve areas. At the moment, we have two national parks and one protected wildlife reserve areas and one protected landscape in Afghanistan.
Crises and wars end sooner or later, and people start restoring their wildlife.
Wakhan Corridor is the Afghanistan's second national park, which is located in the northeast Afghanistan. Wakhan area is the habitat of almost 17 species of mammals and ungulates, and there are opportunities for conservation and opportunities for ecotourism also. The tourism industry is just started a few years back in Afghanistan, but still there are something behind that we can manage it to bring tourists from other countries, especially Central Asia, to northeast Afghanistan, to Wakhan areas for not only for tourism purposes, but also to increase the revenue for the local community in conservation purposes.
Khalil Karimov, biologist from Tajikistan, received a prestigious international award for his contribution to saving rare animal species.
Многие виды диких животных в Таджикистане после гражданской войны были на грани исчезновения.
After the civil war, many animal species were on the verge of extinction. For example, the Bukhara markhor, the Siberian goat, or the Marco Polo sheep. When the civil war ended, local communities realized that if they don't protect these species in the course of several years, they will all simply disappear. In order to do so, they joined their efforts, and in places where there were a couple of dozen ibexes or a couple dozen markhors, they started protecting them on volunteer basis. Today there are already a couple hundred animals there. For instance, back then there were only 300 Bukhara markhors left in the whole country, and today there are 2,000 of them. Ararat Khorshoy, scientist from Iraq, also has to work in tough conditions.
But we are trying, we are at the beginning to establish a protected area in some areas in Iraq, and our goal is to involve local people in the managing these areas. We are trying to bring the community-based wildlife management to our project. Especially, we are trying to protect the iconic species of Persian leopard in certain areas in mountainous area in Iraq, and we are trying to people be a part or interact with the wildlife in a systematic way and in a sustainable way.
Compared with other Central Asian countries, the situation in Kazakhstan is relatively stable. The total number of argali exceeds 16,000 animals. Out of the 9 argali subspecies, 4 live in Kazakhstan, including the most numerous Central Kazakhstan subspecies. Argali prefer open space like steppe mountain slopes and rocky foothills, alpine meadows, rocky canyons overgrown with shrubs, valleys with rocky hills. From our SUV, it's possible to get only a distant view of Argali. To have a better look, we will have to climb to the top of the mountain. That is 900 meters vertically. Nurum Sagaliev, an extremely experienced biologist and game manager in the park, will be our guide. Aybat Muzbay graduated from the university 6 months ago, but he's already a serious field researcher. While still a student, Aybat often went on expeditions with experienced zoologists and mastered not only wild animal accounting methods, but also learned to understand their behavior. In addition, fieldwork requires excellent vision and good physical shape. Gray is 35 years older than Aybat, but he doesn't lag behind. Gray is in good shape, as he has been on many expeditions on all 5 continents. Gray has noticed something behind the hill. We want to first survey the place from afar and then come closer.
There's about 12 males. All of them are big. Yeah. They have big horns.
300 meters of 5 really big rams. There's another 4 down here. There's a big bedded one. We've got about 10 to 12 rams below us.
Previously, we have met only small groups, but Nurum is sure that if we look around carefully, we will manage to locate a large herd. Group number 90 has passed over there. There are 27 animals in it. Over there, there is a male group. We saw 4 groups here.
Вот эту вот яму выгрызли архары. В прямом смысле выгрызли прямо зубами они.
The argali have gnawed this bit. Literally, they nagged it out with their teeth. They bite the ground with their teeth and eat it. Apparently, this place has an increased concentration of salt. Ungulates often lack salt, and sometimes they dig huge pits. Over 1 meter deep and up to 3 meters wide to get the salt. This desire of the ungulates to visit alkali soil spots is used in biotechnology both in national parks and hunting farms. We create artificial salt feeding sites and the animals gather there. All day we have been wandering around the slopes and finally fortune smiled upon us. Behind one of these steep slopes we encountered a large herd of argali. The wind was tearing our jackets and striking down our tripods, not allowing us to take any pictures. But we were happy.
Настроение сегодня великолепное.
We are all in excellent mood today because we have seen 250 Kazakhstani argali in the course of just one day. One of the herds had over 80 animals. It's a very good indicator, clearly showing that the argali population in the Buratao National Park is steadily growing. Sometimes it's sad when you come to a place which is specially protected, wander the place for weeks, but don't find any animals there. Here in Buratao, the situation is absolutely different. We have encountered wild animals many times, both argali and morals. Also, although we didn't see any elks, we found their tracks. This is a great place for ecotourism. Come here and I'm sure you will have ample opportunities for not only seeing but also photographing wild animals. Unlike mountain sheep, the noble morel deer prefer forested areas. In the afternoon they hide in the forest and at dusk they come out to graze on open meadows. Historically, morels inhabited the Buratao forest outliers, but in the middle of the last century they were completely exterminated. The program for relocating morels from eastern Kazakhstan region was launched in 2002 and continues to this day. To avoid genetic depletion of the population, it is necessary to add fresh blood from time to time. Relocating large animals from distant areas is not an easy task, but Kazakhstani experts possess the necessary knowledge and skills. Today, the park can boast of about 250 morels living on its premises. It's getting dark, and it's time to return to the cordon. For a modest fee, tourists can rent a guest house. There is a cook, but you need to bring your food with you. Anna Smokotina, head of the Belodimovsky branch, greets the guests. A wonderful dinner is awaiting the guests, and then there will be a lengthy conversation with their new friends. They want to learn as much as possible about the national parks of Kazakhstan. In turn, the park staff are eager to learn more about the U.S. wildlife management system.
Raise and direct millions of dollars into wild sheep conservation, and together with our partners, that are both agencies like your national park here, but our state, provincial, and tribal agencies and other partners, our chapters and affiliates, we've been able to increase bighorn populations nearly threefold from their lows in the 1960s.
The expedition is coming to an end. In the course of the past 3 days, the US and Kazakhstan specialists learned a lot about each other. They became real friends and agreed to meet in 3 months. The venue of the upcoming meeting will be the Yellowstone National Park, the oldest national park in the world.